Welcome to my tutorial series, Object-Oriented Programming for Mobile Website Development. So from where we left off, back in the code, what we have to do here now is to move this controller login class in a controllers folder. So every controller we create shall be in that folder as well. So all the controllers in the controllers folder, all models in the models folder, all views in the views folder. Okay, so that's what we're trying to implement. But before we do that, we can create a class instance from that and then call it login, end of statement. So that's the class name. But if we move it now, what we have to do is to require it. In other words, include it back on this page using that include command or require command. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that just now and call this out, and now we shall save this file name as the class name, to be consistent with the same naming convention logic. You choose your PHP for highlighting, put your PHP block there, and then paste it right there. Now all you have to do is to save it in your root folder. You have to create a new folder for that, call it controllers. So controllers folder, and remember the name you're saving it as, login, same name as the class name in this file. That will be important when we want to reference it. Okay, so when you go back to your code, we have our controller class, which is implementing two methods, and the model class, constructor and load model method. That's our controller class. And our view class, just one function, render view page. See, so all our classes are all the functions they're implementing. Okay, so at this stage, let me give you a test drive of what we've done already before I can continue with the code. So to call these methods now, all we have to do is to assign that to a variable name, assign that to hold that value, a class object called controller, and say it's equal to new controller, new login. Now use this. You see now at this instance, when this instance is created, the moment this instance is created now, that code in the constructor function has fired off already, making this view object available to be used in the login class, like we did here. That's the magic taking place now behind the scene. So use that object to call. The moment you call this load model function, that will also return this model object for you to use in this class. See what we are trying to do. Now at this stage you have to supply the parameter because it's a known value, login. But like it can be any model. Just apply the parameter, it knows what to do. So now you've called that method. What you have to do now is to call this process form method from the controller login class to load that model, to make that model available. And that will go like that. Object name followed by that notation, space or no space, function name, end of statement. So now this code will run when we execute when I try to run it. But like you must require that file to make it available on this page so the class name will be found. So you require that from the controllers folder, and the name is login.php. See, so file name as the class name as the folder name, as the module name. So see, we are using that string login to represent all these methods we are trying to call. So that's important naming convention. So it makes it easier to reference in the code. And the login controller is also using that same login to load that login page. Same name as the class. So we've done that. At this stage now, if I go ahead and save this page and give it a test drive, yeah. So if we call the load model function and then call the get default page function with the same class object, we can now call the process form. And you know, this process form from the class login was used to invoke the method load model function from the login model class. Okay, so at this stage now, let me give you a test drive. What we have done, so we have a controller class that implements constructor function and load model function. And now this login class extends it, and using that to call the parent load model function here, that will make the object available to be used in this process form method. Okay, so if I go ahead now and refresh this page, our page will load, no problem. So if I go ahead and type my email and password only me, my password only me, and that's working. All right, so that tells us now that our model view controller framework is working. Okay, so we got a controller class, and then we have a view class. So at this stage now, let me show you how you can put title on this page. I'll do that. Let me quickly create another class. Call it model, right? And create another class. Call it database class. And then let that database class implement some functions. Okay, so that database class can also implement other functions called delete, update, and insert into table. We can do all that. Now we'll call this one delete, call this one update, call this one insert. See? So what we want the model function to do is to create a constructor function that will give us instance of this database class. And this constructor function will give us instance of the database class. So it in a DB object like that. You see? So instance of the database class. So any class now that extends model and calls a constructor function can use this DB object to call method implemented in a database class. I will show you how to do that in the next video. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.